Nothing like midnight bench pressing to deal with a cheating wife's lies. The bar felt heavier tonight, matching the weight in my gut as I pushed through another rep in my basement gym. 2:15 a.m., and Lara still wasn't home from her work dinner that supposedly ended at 9. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name's Ben Carrick, and I've been married to the most manipulative woman in Portland, Maine for 8 years. Used to play semi-pro hockey until a knee injury sent me into construction work. Now I run my own crew, build decks, and renovate kitchens for people who think blue-collar means blue-brained. They're usually wrong about that. The house creaked above me as the front door finally opened. I could hear Lara's heels clicking across the hardwood, that particular rhythm she used when she was trying to be quiet but wanted me to know she was home. Everything with Lara was calculated, from her morning protein shake to the way she arranged her gym clothes to look casually expensive. I finished my set and grabbed my phone from the weight bench. 3 missed calls from my crew chief Marty, probably about tomorrow's job site. But what caught my attention was the notification screen lighting up Lara's iPhone, which she'd left charging on the small table near my equipment. TK had sent 14 text messages since 11 p.m. Now, I'm not the jealous type by nature. 8 years of marriage teaches you to pick your battles. But when your wife starts getting late-night text marathons from someone whose contact info is just initials, and she's coming home at 2:15 smelling like men's cologne that isn't yours, even a trusting husband starts connecting dots. The basement door opened above me. "Ben, you down there?" "Where else would I be?" I called back, not bothering to hide the edge in my voice. Lara appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her black dress and heels. Even pissed off and suspicious, I had to admit she looked good. Lara always looked good. It was her superpower and her weapon of choice. 5'6", blonde hair that cost more to maintain than my truck payments, and the kind of body that came from expensive personal training sessions. "How was dinner?" I asked, racking the barbell with more force than necessary. "Fine. Boring client stuff." She was already turning away, dismissing me. "I'm going to shower." "Funny thing," I said, standing up and grabbing her phone from the table. "Your phone's been buzzing all night. Someone named TK seems pretty eager to talk to you." The change in her expression was instant. The casual dismissal vanished, replaced by something sharper, more calculating. This was the Lara I'd been seeing more of lately, the one who treated every conversation like a chess match. "Give me my phone, Ben." "TK," I repeated, not handing it over. "Let me guess. Troy Kemp from your gym?" Her silence was confirmation enough. Troy Kemp, the personal trainer who looked like he'd been carved from marble and had the personality to match. I'd met him exactly once, when I'd picked Lara up from the gym after her car broke down. He'd given me the kind of handshake that was supposed to be a dominance display, all while looking at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "Ben, don't be ridiculous." "Ridiculous?" I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "You know what's ridiculous? Pretending I'm stupid enough to believe your bullshit anymore." She descended the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. When Lara wanted to intimidate someone, she used her whole body like a weapon. The way she moved, the way she held her head, even the way she breathed. It had worked on me for years. "Fine," she said when she reached the bottom. "You want the truth? I've been seeing someone from your gym, actually. Someone who's much more attractive than you, much more interesting than you, and much better at satisfying me than you've ever been." The casual cruelty of it hit like a slap. Not just the admission, but the way she delivered it. Bored, almost annoyed that she had to explain herself. Like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. "That's nice," I managed, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Hope he likes STDs because you're about to become his problem." "Don't be disgusting." "Me? I'm not the one screwing around with the gym's resident steroid case." Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "Troy is twice the man you are. In every way that matters." I pulled out my own phone and opened the voice recorder app, making sure she could see what I was doing. "Say that again. For my memoirs. Or court, whichever comes first." "You're pathetic." "Maybe, but I'm pathetic with evidence now." I hit record. "So just to be clear, you've been having an affair with Troy Kemp, and you're telling me this because I'm tired of pretending." She crossed her arms, striking a pose like she was doing me a favor by being honest. "I'm tired of pretending you're enough for me. I'm tired of pretending this marriage means anything, and I'm especially tired of pretending I don't deserve better than a washed-up hockey player who builds decks for a living." Every word was chosen to cut deep, and they did their job. But something funny happened while she was talking. Instead of feeling destroyed, I felt something else entirely. Relief, maybe, or clarity. "Well," I said, stopping the recording, "I appreciate the honesty. Really, it's going to make the next few weeks much more interesting." "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled at her, and I could see it unsettled her. "Good. Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart. You just focus on your new relationship. I'll handle everything else." The next morning, I was at Murphy's gym by 6 a.m. Not my usual routine. I preferred my home setup, but today I had business to conduct. The place was already busy with the early crowd, mostly contractors and shift workers getting their workout in before heading to job sites. Casey Morrison was working the front desk, same as always. Mid-30s, bleached blonde, and the kind of woman who knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. She and Lara had been friends since college, which meant Casey knew exactly what was going on with Troy. "Ben," she called out as I approached the counter. "Don't usually see you here in the mornings." "Figured I'd switch things up," I said, leaning against the counter. "Hey, can I ask you something, off the record?" Casey's eyes lit up. She lived for gossip the way some people lived for oxygen. "Sure, what's up?" "You know Troy pretty well, right?" "Troy Kemp? Yeah, why?" "Just curious about his professional standards. Guy seems to spend a lot of time with his clients after hours." I watched Casey's expression change as she processed what I was really asking. The gym gossip network was faster and more efficient than the internet, and Casey was its primary hub. "Oh," she said, understanding dawning. "Oh, Ben, I'm sorry." "Nothing to be sorry about. Just want to make sure management knows what kind of activities their employees are engaging in, especially when it involves using gym facilities for non-gym purposes." Casey glanced around nervously. "I probably shouldn't—" "Look," I said, pulling out a USB drive I'd prepared that morning. "I'm not asking you to do anything. Just thought you should know that gym security cameras pick up more than people think they do. And sometimes, members' spouses get curious about those late-night training sessions." I'd spent 3 hours that morning going through the security footage I'd legally obtained as a gym member. Amazing what you could access when you knew the right passwords and had helped install the system's wiring 2 years ago. Nothing explicit, but plenty of Troy and Lara in compromising positions in areas of the gym that were supposed to be off-limits after hours. Casey took the USB drive like it might explode. "Ben, what do you want me to do with this?" "Whatever you think is right. You're a good friend to Lara. I'm sure you want what's best for her." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot when the real show started. Through the gym's front windows, I could see Casey talking animatedly to the manager, Mike Brennan. Mike was a good guy, former Marine who ran the place like a tight ship. He didn't tolerate employees who brought drama to his business. My phone buzzed with a text from Lara. "At gym. Something's wrong with my membership card." I typed back, "Weird. Maybe ask Troy for help." Another buzz. "Troy's not here? They said he doesn't work here anymore." "Huh, that's unfortunate." My phone rang immediately. "Ben, what did you do?" "Me? I'm at a job site in South Portland. Why would I have anything to do with your gym problems?" "Don't play dumb with me." "I'm not playing anything. But if I were you, I'd probably find a new gym. And maybe a new trainer. I hear Planet Fitness is nice this time of year." She hung up on me. I sat in my truck for another 10 minutes, watching through the windows as Lara argued with Mike at the front desk. Even from a distance, I could see her getting more animated, more desperate. The Ice Queen routine only worked when you held the cards. Finally, she stormed out of the gym, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She didn't notice my truck parked 3 rows away, which was fine by me. I wasn't ready for round 2 yet. My phone rang. Marty. "Boss, you coming to the Henderson job today or what?" "On my way." "Hey, you still know people at Murphy's gym?" "Yeah, why?" "Just curious if you heard anything interesting about Troy Kemp recently." Marty chuckled. "You mean about him getting fired this morning for screwing around with married members?" "Yeah, I heard. Word is they got video evidence and everything. Guy's lucky they didn't press charges for trespassing." "Interesting. Ben, please tell me you didn't do something stupid." "Nothing stupid about protecting your reputation or making sure people face consequences for their choices." "Jesus Christ, what's next?" I thought about that as I drove toward the job site. What was next? Lara and Troy thought they were playing games with someone who wouldn't fight back. They thought wrong. "Next," I told Marty, "we see how much they really like each other when the fun stuff stops being fun." The Henderson deck project was perfect for thinking and planning. Repetitive work that let my hands stay busy while my brain worked through the next phase. Marty and I had been framing since 8 a.m., and he'd been giving me sideways looks all morning. "You're going to tell me what's really going on, right?" he said around noon, setting down his nail gun. Marty Rodriguez. Shit, I can't use that name. Marty Collins had been working with me for 3 years, ever since he got out of Shawshank on a drug possession charge that should have been a fine instead of 18 months. He was 42, built like a brick wall, and had the kind of street smarts you only get from hard experience. My wife's screwing around, I said, measuring a board. I'm handling it. Handling it how? Legally, methodically, completely. Marty was quiet for a minute, which meant he was thinking. You need backup? Maybe, depends how far they want to push it. They. I explained about Troy, about the gym, about Lara's casual cruelty the night before. Marty listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or grunting. When I finished, he was quiet for another long moment. So what's the plan? Information first, then leverage, then consequences. I like it. What do you need? That afternoon, I made 2 important phone calls. The first was to Jenna Walsh, who worked in Lara's PR firm and had always been friendly to me at company parties. Jenna was one of those people who saw everything and remembered it all, but was usually too polite to share. Usually. Ben, is everything okay? Hey, Jenna, I was wondering if I could ask you a favor. Completely confidential. Of course. What's up? Lara's been acting strange lately, and I'm worried about her. Has she seemed different at work? Stressed, maybe? There was a pause. Ben, I probably shouldn't... I'm not asking you to betray any confidences. I just want to know if she's okay. Another pause. She's been distracted, taking a lot of personal calls, leaving early some days. Any idea what's going on? There's been some talk about her using company resources for personal things, charging personal expenses to client accounts, that kind of thing. Nothing proven, but... Interesting? Thanks, Jenna. I appreciate the honesty. Ben, if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Lara's my colleague, but you've always been good to me. The second call was to my neighbor, Frank Barlow. Frank was 73, retired from the Portland Police Department after 30 years, and had the kind of institutional knowledge that was invaluable in situations like this. Ben, good to hear from you. How's the marriage? Frank had always been perceptive. That's actually what I'm calling about. I gave him the abbreviated version. Frank listened without judgment. Cops were good at that. What do you need from me? Advice, mostly. I want to handle this right. Legally right. Smart. You recording conversations? Started last night. Good. Maine's a one-party consent state, so you're covered. What else? They're using facilities that aren't theirs, charging things to accounts they shouldn't have access to, making me look like a fool in public. Evidence? Working on it. Frank was quiet for a moment. Ben, I've seen a lot of divorces go bad. The ones that go smoothest are when one party has all the cards before the other party knows the game started. That's what I'm hoping for. You need anything that requires my particular skill set, you call me. I may be retired, but I still know people. That evening, Lara came home around 7, which was early for her lately. She looked tired and angry, which I took as a good sign. We need to talk, she said. Sure. Want a beer? I want you to stop whatever you're doing. I opened 2 bottles and offered her one. She ignored it. I'm not doing anything except going to work and coming home. Same as always. Bullshit. Troy lost his job today. My gym membership was terminated. People are talking. People always talk. That's what people do. Ben, I'm serious. Stop. I sat down at the kitchen table and gestured for her to do the same. She remained standing, trying to maintain the power position. Classic Lara. Let me ask you something, I said. When you decided to have an affair, did you think about consequences? Don't lecture me. I'm not lecturing. I'm genuinely curious. Did you think I'd just accept it? That I'd quietly go along with being humiliated? I thought you'd be mature about it. I laughed, and she flinched at the sound. Mature. Right. Well, here's some maturity for you. Actions have consequences. You chose to betray our marriage. Troy chose to participate. Now you both get to live with what comes next. What does that mean? It means I'm not the same person I was a week ago. It means I'm not going to make this easy for you, and it means if you want to be with Troy, you're going to earn that relationship the hard way. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her recalculating. The Ben she knew would have yelled, or cried, or begged her to work things out. This Ben was different, and it scared her. I'm going to stay at my sister's tonight, she said finally. Good idea. Give you both some time to think about your next moves. After she left, I sat in my kitchen and planned Phase 2. Troy Kemp lived in a converted apartment complex on the east side of town, the kind of place where the rent was cheap and the neighbors minded their own business. His pride and joy was a 2018 Mustang GT, candy apple red with custom wheels and an exhaust system loud enough to wake the dead. At 4 a.m., that Mustang was parked in Space 23, same as always. I'd spent Tuesday evening doing reconnaissance, learning Troy's patterns. He worked out at a different gym now, Planet Fitness, ironically, from 5 to 6:30 every morning, then came home to shower before heading to his new job at a supplement store in the mall, steady as clockwork. Marty met me 2 blocks away at 4:15, carrying a gym bag and wearing the kind of grin that meant trouble. "You sure about this?" he asked as we walked toward the complex. "He wants to play games with other people's lives. He gets to learn what games feel like." The Mustang was beautiful, I had to admit. Troy probably spent more on car payments than I spent on groceries, which made what we were about to do feel almost educational. "Sugar in the gas tank's a myth," Marty said, pulling supplies from his bag. "Won't actually hurt the engine." "I know, that's why we're not using sugar." What we used instead was a combination of techniques Marty had learned during his less legal years. Nothing that would cause permanent damage or create safety hazards, but enough to make Troy's life significantly more complicated and expensive. The graffiti was my personal touch. Cougar Bait in bright yellow spray paint across the hood, with Home Wrecker on the driver's side door. Juvenile? Maybe. Effective? Definitely. We were back at my truck by 4:40, and I was at my own job site by 6. By 7, my phone was buzzing with texts from numbers I didn't recognize, photos of Troy's vandalized car, forwarded through the gym gossip network that Casey Morrison managed like a social media empire. The photos were everything I'd hoped for. Troy standing next to his ruined Mustang, looking like someone had kicked his dog. The bright yellow graffiti was clearly visible, and the message was unmistakable. Within an hour, the photos were circulating through 3 different gyms, 2 bars, and the supplement store where Troy worked. My phone rang at 8:30. Lara. "This has to stop." "What has to stop?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Someone vandalized Troy's car." "That's terrible. Did he call the police?" "Ben, I know it was you." "Really? You have evidence of that?" "Because making false accusations is actually illegal." Silence on the other end. I could practically hear her grinding her teeth. "Look," I continued, "I'm sorry someone damaged Troy's car. That's unfortunate. But maybe he should think about the kind of enemies he makes when he sleeps with other men's wives." "You're being ridiculous." "I'm being protective of my reputation and my marriage. If Troy doesn't like the consequences of his choices, he should make different choices." She hung up. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Troy." I forwarded the text to Frank Barlow with a message. "Might need backup soon." Frank's response was immediate. "Ready when you are." That afternoon, Jenna called me back. "Ben, I have some information you might find interesting." "I'm listening." "Lara's been using the company credit card for personal expenses. Spa treatments, restaurant bills, hotel charges. Our accountant noticed it during the monthly review." "How much?" "About $3,000 over the past 2 months. She's supposed to get client approval for entertainment expenses over $50, but she's been forging signatures." "That's embezzlement." "Technically, yes. Our boss hasn't decided whether to press charges or just fire her." "What would it take to help him make that decision?" "Evidence that she's been using company resources for personal relationships instead of client development." I thought about the hotel charges. "Jenna, if I could prove that those hotel expenses were for personal use, would that be helpful?" "Very helpful, especially if there was documentation." "How helpful?" "Helpful enough that I might be able to afford a vacation this year, if you know what I mean." I knew what she meant. Information was valuable, and people who provided valuable information deserved compensation. "I'll be in touch." That evening, I drove to Murphy's gym and had a conversation with Casey Morrison. Casey was angry. She'd been laid off as part of the fallout from the Troy situation, and she wasn't happy about it. "They made me the scapegoat," she complained over coffee at the diner across the street. "Like it's my fault their precious trainer was screwing around with members." "That's not fair," I agreed, "especially since you were just trying to help management understand what was happening." "Exactly. I was protecting the gym's reputation." "Casey, can I ask you something? As Lara's friend, are you worried about her?" "Worried how?" "She's been making some questionable decisions lately. The affair, obviously, but other things, too." "Financial things?" Casey leaned forward, interested. "What kind of financial things?" "I probably shouldn't say, but if she's been using company money to pay for hotel rooms and dinners with Troy..." "She has been," Casey said immediately. "She told me about it, said it was no big deal, that everyone does it." "Did she show you receipts?" Text messages about it. She showed me texts where she was bragging about it, screenshots of the bills, that kind of thing. Do you still have those screenshots? Casey's expression changed as she realized what I was asking. Ben, I'm not asking you to betray your friendship. I'm asking you to help me protect myself. If Lara's committing fraud, I could be held responsible as her husband. I need to know what I'm dealing with. It took another 20 minutes of conversation, but Casey eventually agreed to forward me the screenshots, not out of loyalty to me, but out of anger at losing her job and resentment toward Lara for dragging her into the mess. By 9 p.m., I had documentation of Lara's embezzlement, Troy's home address and work schedule, and a growing network of people who were tired of being collateral damage in other people's drama. Phase 3 was ready to begin. Thursday evening, Troy finally worked up the courage to confront me directly. I was at Sullivan's Tavern, a dive bar near the waterfront where contractors and dock workers went to drink beer and complain about their jobs. The kind of place where everyone minded their own business unless you gave them a reason not to. Troy walked in at 7:30, looking around nervously until he spotted me at the bar. He'd cleaned up since the car incident, new clothes, fresh haircut, trying to project confidence he didn't feel, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting around the room. Ben Carrick? I turned on my bar stool, beer in hand. Troy, heard you had some car trouble. We need to talk. Sure. Buy you a drink? He glanced around the bar again, taking in the crowd. Sullivan's wasn't his kind of place. Too working class, too authentic. The clientele was mostly guys like me, people who worked with their hands and didn't have patience for pretty boys with attitude problems. Not here, he said. Here's perfect. Public place, witnesses, neutral territory. What's on your mind? Troy moved closer, lowering his voice. I know you vandalized my car. That's a serious accusation. And you have proof? I know it was you. Knowing and proving are different things. I took a sip of my beer, staying relaxed. But let's say, hypothetically, that someone did vandalize your car. Why do you think that happened? Because you're jealous. I laughed, loud enough that a few other patrons looked over. Jealous? Of what? Your job at the supplement store, your ruined car, your reputation as the guy who sleeps with married women? Troy's face flushed red. Lara chose me. Lara chose to cheat on her husband with a guy young enough to be her little brother. That's not a choice to be proud of. She's leaving you. Maybe she is, but she's not staying with you. That got his attention. What's that supposed to mean? It means Lara likes excitement, drama, forbidden relationships. Once you're not forbidden anymore, you're just another unemployed pretty boy with a vandalized car and no prospects. Troy stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. Bad move in a bar full of construction workers and dock hands. I could see Marty, 2 stools down, watching the interaction with interest. Frank Barlow was playing pool in the back, also keeping an eye on things. You need to back off, Troy said. Or what? Or you'll regret it. I set my beer down and stood up. Troy was taller than me, but I had 40 pounds of muscle and 20 years of experience dealing with people who thought they were tougher than they actually were. Troy, I said quietly, you're in the wrong bar, talking to the wrong guy about the wrong woman. You want to threaten me? Go ahead. But understand that I'm not the same person I was a week ago. I'm not going to roll over and let you and my wife humiliate me. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. The bar had gone quiet around us. Nothing dramatic, just the natural pause that happens when people sense trouble brewing. Troy looked around and realized he was surrounded by people who were decidedly not on his side. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. Troy left, but not before I saw him pull out his phone to call someone, probably Lara. I finished my beer and chatted with Marty and Frank for another hour, letting the story spread through the bar's social network. By tomorrow, half the blue-collar workers in Portland would know that Troy Kemp had tried to threaten Ben Carrick and backed down. My phone rang as I was driving home. Lara. What did you say to Troy? We had a conversation about boundaries and consequences. He said you threatened him. I explained reality to him. If he interpreted that as a threat, maybe he's smarter than I gave him credit for. Ben, this has gone too far. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, we're just getting started. What do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want Troy to understand that sleeping with other men's wives isn't a game. And I want everyone who knows us to understand that I'm not the kind of man who gets walked on. So what happens now? Now you and Troy get to decide how much more embarrassment you want to endure. Because every day you continue this relationship, I'm going to make your lives a little more complicated. You can't do this forever. Watch me. I hung up and drove home to my empty house. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel empty. I felt focused, determined, and completely in control of my own life. Tomorrow, Phase 4 would begin. Friday morning brought the kind of October weather that made Maine beautiful. Crisp air, brilliant sunshine, leaves turning colors that belonged in paintings. It also brought a phone call from Jenna that changed everything. Ben, you need to know something. Lara's boss is meeting with her this morning about the credit card situation. How do you know? Because I'm the one who compiled the evidence report. I was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. Jenna, what did you include in that report? Everything. The forged signatures, the unauthorized expenses, the hotel bills that don't match any client meetings, and the screenshots Casey provided showing Lara bragging about using company money for personal entertainment. How much trouble is she in? The kind of trouble that involves police reports and criminal charges. This changed the timeline significantly. I'd been planning a slow, methodical campaign of social and professional destruction. But if Lara was about to face criminal charges for embezzlement, I needed to accelerate my plans. Jenna, I owe you dinner at the nicest restaurant in Portland. I'll hold you to that. I called Marty and told him to handle the job site alone today. I had personal business to attend to. Then I called Frank Barlow. Frank, remember that favor you offered? I need it today. What's the situation? Lara's about to be arrested for embezzlement. Before that happens, I need to have a very public conversation with her and Troy about the consequences of their choices. Where and when? Monument Square, noon. Can you make sure there's a good crowd? Frank chuckled. Son, I've been stirring up crowds since before you were born. Leave it to me. Monument Square was Portland's central gathering place, surrounded by shops and restaurants, always busy during lunch hour. It was also where the city held public events, political rallies, and the kind of community gatherings that drew attention. At 11:30, I positioned myself on the steps of the monument with a small portable speaker and a folder full of documents. Frank had done his job. Word had spread through the retiree network, the veteran community, and the local business association that something interesting was going to happen at noon. Lara arrived at 11:50, looking frantic. She'd obviously gotten the message I'd sent. Meet me at Monument Square if you want to avoid criminal charges. Ben, what is this? This is your opportunity to tell the truth publicly before the police tell it for you. What are you talking about? I held up the folder. Credit card fraud, forged signatures, embezzlement of company funds to pay for your affair. Your boss filed a police report this morning. The color drained from her face. How do you know that? Because I helped him file it. Turns out when you provide evidence of criminal activity, people take it seriously. Troy appeared at the edge of the square, looking confused and angry. He'd obviously been summoned by Lara, but he didn't understand what he was walking into. The crowd was growing. Frank had spread the word that there was going to be a community discussion about accountability and consequences, which was vague enough to attract attention and specific enough to draw people who loved drama. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, turning on the speaker, thank you for coming. My name is Ben Carrick, and I want to tell you a story about marriage, betrayal, and justice. Ben, don't do this, Lara pleaded. 2 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife of 8 years was having an affair with a personal trainer named Troy Kemp. When I confronted her about it, she told me that Troy was twice the man I was, and that she deserved better than a washed-up hockey player who builds decks for a living. The crowd murmured with interest. Nothing drew attention like public drama, especially when it involved adultery and class warfare. Now, I could have handled this privately. I could have quietly filed for divorce and moved on with my life, but my wife and her boyfriend decided to make this public. They flaunted their relationship at the gym where I'm a member. They used company money to pay for their hotel rooms and dinners. They made me a laughingstock in my own community. Troy started pushing through the crowd toward me, his face red with anger. You son of a bitch. So I decided, I continued, that if they wanted to make this public, we'd make it really public. I opened the folder and held up the first document. This is a credit card statement showing that Lara Carrick charged $3,000 in personal expenses to her employer's account over the past 2 months, dinners, hotel rooms, spa treatments, all to support her affair with Troy Kemp. The crowd was fully engaged now, phones coming out to record the spectacle. This was the kind of public meltdown that would be shared on social media within minutes. This, I held up another document, is a screenshot of text messages where Lara bragged about using company money to pay for her affair, saying it was no big deal because everyone does it. Ben, stop. Lara was crying now, mascara running down her face. And this, I held up the final document, is a police report filed this morning charging Lara Carrick with embezzlement, fraud, and forgery. Troy finally reached the front of the crowd. I'm going to kill you. "No," said Frank Barlow, stepping out of the crowd to block Troy's path. "You're not." Frank was 73 years old, but he was still 6'2" and carried himself like the cop he'd been for 30 years. Troy took one look at him and stopped moving. "The morale of this story," I said to the crowd, "is simple. Actions have consequences. If you betray people who love you, if you steal money to fund your betrayals, if you think you're above the rules that govern everyone else, eventually those consequences catch up with you." I turned off the speaker and looked directly at Lara and Troy. "Your memberships in decent society have been revoked, permanently." The crowd began to disperse, but not before dozens of photos and videos had been taken. By evening, the story would be all over social media. By Monday, everyone in Portland would know what had happened. Lara was sobbing openly now, her carefully constructed image destroyed in front of half the city. Troy was backing away from Frank, looking for an escape route. "Ben," Lara managed through her tears, "how could you do this to me?" "I didn't do this to you," I said quietly. "You did this to yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it clearly." I walked away from Monument Square feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear Lara trying to explain herself to the lingering crowd, her voice desperate and broken. It was over. Not just the marriage, but the humiliation, the uncertainty, the feeling of being powerless in my own life. I'd taken control back, and I'd done it publicly, permanently, and completely. Justice wasn't always pretty, but it was always satisfying.